Well, hello, Tabs. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you. As my listeners and viewers know, I love to bring on my students of the boot camp, my one-on-one coaching clients, and share their journeys and their experiences and their successes and how they did that exactly. And with you, Tabs, you have a interesting niche, which is why I was so excited to bring you on, because it's not a niche that I've ever had here on the podcast before. Why don't you share with our listeners and viewers a little bit about you and your YouTube channel?
All right, so I am a Canadian reseller. I'm a mom, a wife. I work part-time in a hospital pharmacy, and I sell used clothing. So I sell used clothing online, and then I share my journey and everything about my business through my YouTube channel, and then helping other people grow their businesses as well. So yeah, I got into it a couple years ago, and it's just snowballed. I don't know, it's been a crazy journey, but I absolutely love it. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, and another thing that I wanted to point out for the people watching, listening, is that you're not a huge channel. You're a relatively small channel. But one of the things I want to talk about too is just the ability that even with a small channel to have a very loyal audience that you can monetize. How many subscribers are you at now?
7.3.
Yeah,
So yeah, 7.3K.
7,000. Yeah, yeah.
Crazy because like I feel we first started, my goal was like, I want 100,000 subscribers and I want to grow my channel to this. And then as we started to figure things out, I was like, no, I'm setting monetary goals now, because I was like, I don't need the 100,000 to reach monetary goals. That was, yeah.
So you and share with everybody your kind of like your goals with your channel and like where you see it long term and how it plays into your overall lifestyle.
Our goal is, I have two girls, one's in college and the other one will be graduating high school in a couple years. And our goal is in a couple years that we're just going to live a lifestyle of freedom and basically work when we want, but do traveling, more traveling. And right now I do reselling more stationery. I'm sourcing locally. All my videos are kind of based locally, but the transition that I would like to see is my channel turning into like a travel thrifting reselling channel and kind of highlighting different areas of Canada and the United States. And then monetary wise, it's being able to provide a full-time income. And I think it's like, you set these goals, right? And the first one was like, I want to reach $1,000 a month. And then it was like, I want to reach $2,000 a month. And then it turns into, I want to reach $10,000 a month. And it seems so attainable when you start to break things down and dive into your analytics. How many views is it taking to reach this much? How many views are you striving for? What type of content should I be creating? Because that was something that we played around a lot with, was like, what content was my audience looking for? And then it was stretching the length of the content, which totally blows my mind sometimes, the content that I put out. And yeah, so I think it's just doing what I love and being able to provide a full-time income.
And so for context though, you're working right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I work casual in a hospital pharmacy as a farm tech, and I pick up about 2 12-hour shifts a week. That's kind of like my happy medium. Still gives me time to do my business and to manage my YouTube channel.
And is your goal to then replace that income with your YouTube income?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And not even replace, like surpass. And I don't even know what my future goals are. It's just like riding the wave and seeing what it can do.
You started off as a boot camper, so you enrolled in the boot camp. Why don't you share with everybody where you were at prior to joining the boot camp?
Yeah, for sure. So I felt like I was in a rut. I was creating content, really struggled with thumbnails. I was just like always producing the same stuff, but wasn't growing as much as I wanted to. And I felt like there was a secret that I just couldn't figure out. And I tried to consume, the free content that everyone puts out on YouTube. And then I was like, I followed your podcast since I've started reselling in YouTube, and I was like, you talked about it at the end of one of your videos, and I was like, yeah, I need to do this. She knows what she's talking about. And just listening to the people that came on to your podcast that had been in your groups before, I just felt like it was a good fit. And then going in the group, it was like giving me direction. There was definitely puzzle pieces that I was missing. And yeah, things just started to fall together.
That's great. And so when you said you were in a rut, like how long were you experiencing that? And then how did that feel for you?
It was frustrating because you put so much time and effort into your YouTube channel, and you're like racking your brain trying to figure out what you think what YouTube wants from you. And I was just, I don't know, I was like a roller coaster ride up and down. I wasn't consistent. I didn't know, what I should be making for content. I didn't know who I was making content for. It was just like kind of playing it day by day, but I needed more structure, I feel like, for my channel.
What do you mean by structure exactly?
Like how to talk to the camera in the beginning, having an intro, having an outro, things that you talk about, what videos you should be linking. During our, like, I'm going to jump ahead to our one, we were able to kind of build a schedule that I was following and do video ideas. And that really helped with the planning of my channel. So now I can plan like a month or two out. I mean, I do have content that's very like weekly sensitive, but it was just getting focused, and now having like the different pots of your channel, like these things bring in views, these ones bring in subscribers, this one is bringing in monetary, right? And it's finding the balance of them all. And that's what I was struggling with. And then like I didn't know how to stretch my content. We changed. You had some great ideas on videos to change, and they've turned into my best performing monetary wise and view wise, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know when you came to me, I mean, you were doing the boot camp for a little while, and you're very active in the boot camp. And then, I remember you coming onto the calls, and then once we started doing one-on-one and then analyzing your channel, you were seeing very good views and even AdSense for a relatively small channel. So how did things change for you once you started implementing the boot camp as far as kind of overall improving your channel?
I think the biggest change that I saw during the boot camp was my audience retention. And that was probably like the first analytic that changed. And when that changed, it was like, okay, I need more, because I knew that there was other areas of my channel that I could improve on. And just getting that retention up, I was like, okay, next one. What do we work on next? What do we work on next? I think the other really, the thing that I struggle with, and I still sometimes struggle with, is the thumbnail title. But I was definitely pushed in the boot camp to change my thumbnails. And the changes that I saw in views and click-through rate is crazy. Like it was really good. A lot of it too falls into the niche I'm in, and just getting those like hot topics, those news topics, those are definitely my best performer, and being on top of that. So being the first person to put those videos out in my niche has really, it's been challenging sometimes, but it's also brought in some of the biggest rewards into my channel.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say was in your way of achieving the success that you wanted on YouTube prior to joining the boot camp?
Making changes. Like I was so stuck in like the same thumbnails, exact same thumbnails. Like I look back now and I'm like, they're so cringy. They look so similar. And it was playing with colors. Like when you first suggested, actually, I think it was in the group, someone suggested to make the changes, and I still wasn't really listening. I was making minor changes, but I wasn't grasping some of the changes I needed to make to the thumbnails. And that came with that one-on-one coaching.
So then, what made you, after going through the boot camp for a while, you're very active there. You definitely saw some changes and improvement in the boot camp. What then made you decide to enroll in the one-on-one coaching?
Number one, I had listened to your podcast where you had interviewed other people that were doing one-on-one, and just hearing their responses. And I even went and checked out their channels and seeing growth and the changes that they made. I just felt like you and I would be a good fit. Like I felt like you could help me make those changes. And sometimes you need to have someone tell you to make those. Like, you can know that you have to make changes, but you need someone to tell you and then also lay out the path to take. Like, that was part of my issue, is I just didn't know what to do. You have to make changes, but you don't know where to make them and how to. And I was having a hard time switching the way I was thinking. And that was one of the biggest revelations in the one-on-one, was when you switch the way I thought. Like, I was reluctant to add colors into my thumbnails and the font, and that one change in my click-through rate, it was like instant. And now I'm always using different colors. And yeah, click-through rate was a really big thing. The monetization growth that I saw too with the one-on-one, in the boot camp, I saw monetization growth, and I was like, I know that there's potential, and I follow other resellers in my niche that do very well with it. And I was like, I know I can do this. I just need help. Someone kind of showing me what things work well. And yeah, so that was one of the next like big impacts through the one-on-one coaching that I saw.
The monetization, or how much your AdSense went up?
How much my ad revenue went up. It tripled in 3 months. It tripled.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me, at least when I'm working with people, and even in the bootcamp too. I know we touch a lot on AdSense in the bootcamp. Monetization in general, just because with YouTube, it's this fine balance between, a lot of people say, well, you can't, you don't want to like do YouTube for the money, or you can't get started just to make money, which is true, because if you start it with that mindset, you're not going to be that creative. You're not going to have that creativity needed to like attract an audience and hold an audience and provide the value and all that. However, though, you can't ignore the monetization either, because YouTube is an incredible amount of commitment and dedication and work, and you want to be rewarded for your efforts. And let's not kid ourselves here. Most people do know that, especially this day and age, there is a huge income opportunity with YouTube. And so to be on it and not really tap into the different opportunities is not a good idea, because you'll burn out if you're not making money.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part for people when they're starting out, is that you really have to be passionate about what you're doing, because you're going to do that for most people for quite amount of time and not get paid to do it. So you have to find your passion, and you have to do what you love. You have to be in the right niche, and you have to be willing to do that work for free.
Yeah, and for a little while. And then I always feel as if when it comes to the monetization for YouTube, it's like this exponential growth where it's kind of flat for a little bit, and then it goes up, or you can see it goes up, but it goes up, then it goes up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
it's like, but I think it's also your learning curve, right? It's like when you start to figure out that you're not trying to please YouTube, you're trying to please your viewer. Right? It's like a learning curve. And then once you start to figure out the puzzle pieces, and it just, I agree. It just starts to go up then.
Yeah, it's true. It is a total learning curve with YouTube. So what was the biggest breakthrough that you had when you were going through both the bootcamp and the coaching?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think the biggest breakthrough was probably, I hate to go back to my thumbnails, but it was like, that was a really big thing, was coming to terms with myself to do things that maybe I had this aesthetic in my head, like, this is how I want my thumbnails to be. And I always, like, I'm a neutral tone person. Like, I just had this mindset, and to changing that, like changing what I was wearing in my videos, changing the colors in my thumbnails, using different words, playing with text, like that was a really hard thing. I was just so focused on this is how I wanted it to look, but it wasn't necessarily what viewers wanted to click. And I think the biggest realization was figuring out what viewers wanted to click. What were the viewers looking for? And then I think with that goes the topics, right? It was figuring out the topics that my viewers really wanted to watch. And for me, it turned into my news topics. And I do a weekly segment, and it's usually 45 minutes to an hour long. And that's one of my biggest producing in views, monetization, new subscribers coming to my channel. It actually kind of hits all the pillars for YouTube. So I think that was another really big change that we made to the channel, was finding out like my flagship type video.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love with both the bootcamp and coaching, because the bootcamp has a coaching component to it as well. Because it's the thing with, that's part of the reason why I have the bootcamp set up in the way that it's set up. It's because it's YouTube. There's definitely best practices, but I found that with different niches and even the creator themselves, like their own personality, what they bring to the table, you have to almost have a customized approach to seeing the success. And for you, being that you mentioned resale, but for our listeners and viewers, you talk primarily about Poshmark reselling. And so with that niche, it's very interesting for me as a YouTube strategist to kind of really dive into it and study it and seeing what's working, because what's working in that niche is very different than what works in the lifestyle, fashion, beauty type niche, which is also different than, say, like a medical niche, because I've worked with different like medical professionals and things like that, or business. So it's so interesting because for you, we figured out, you mentioned it earlier, this type of schedule that works for you. And part of that included very long videos, like very long. And I was like, let's make them longer. Let's see what, let's make them longer with the monetization and the ad, like that all helps. And it's like, but you can only do that if it works, if you have, like you mentioned, the retention, if the retention is high. It only works for certain niches, and like yours was so specific. It was like a work with me. It was a whole situation, and it was like, okay, let's do this. And it truly is aligning with your niche and your audience, and how you saw the success from that. So it's really, to me, very interesting too, kind of the different ways that people see success on YouTube. And I love that as a coach, because it's always like challenging and always like different and interesting. And I find that each person that I get to work with, it's like they're, like you mentioned, puzzle pieces. It's like, they're like a puzzle to figure out, get all those pieces right. And for one person to the next, it's never the same.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, I felt the same way kind of when we started working through things. It was just, I wasn't expecting to do, and I think it was in the boot camp when I started doing the work with me videos, and just trying, because you talk about different strategies and you talk about doing news articles and things. And I was like, okay, well, how do I do this in my niche? Because that's what I liked about the boot camp. I know that you specialize in beauty and lifestyle, but you can have any niche. Like I came in as a Poshmark reseller into the boot camp and was able to apply all the modules into my business. And even when you send out your, I think, is it monthly?
Yeah, we have the video ideas guide. Yeah.
And at first I was like, how does this apply? And I think someone gave me a few examples, and I was like, and then once you change the way you think about that, you're like, okay. So you send it out and I'm like, okay, I got 5 good ideas out of, like, I mean, there's lots, but typically I only have room for so many videos. So I'll pick my best 5 out of that list. And it's like, hey, those I can turn into my niche as well. So that was something I was nervous about when I first signed up for the boot camp, and was just so surprised. Like, yeah. And I think that was also the next step too, where I was like, I'm going to go into the one-on-one coaching, because I saw success in so many areas in my business and through my YouTube business, in the boot camp. And it was like, okay, I want to push this more. Yeah. Right. And it was like in my head, I knew that there was that potential. And it was just, I needed more strategy. But again, that boot camp gave me all the framework I ever needed. I just like hand holding. That's
yeah. It's
I like the hand holding.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do, and that's the thing with, I always say that with the boot camp, and it's like, it doesn't matter. We have so many different type of
Yeah.
niche, in the boot camp, and even with my coaching, I prefer to have a variety of niches from totally different, backgrounds. Right now we have like several people in like the travel niche, and like a bunch of people in like
Yeah.
the wellness, fitness niche. And then, then we have like the book niche, and just,
Yeah.
there's so many, true crime. There's just so many niches,
Yeah.
business, HR. It's like, I love all the different niches that I get to work with.
And
So,
everyone
mhm.
brings something different to the Facebook group, which I really enjoy as well. You get so many different aspects and lots of input, which I think helps that community there.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of was my idea, my vision of it when I created it. So, what for you, what was it like to get coaching? Like when people are doing YouTube, it's kind of a little bit of a lonely experience. And then now you have like a partner per se that is there helping you. What was that experience like for you?
It was very helpful. It was a little scary at first because I knew that there was changes that I was going to have to make, and they were hard to do. But I, for me, it was the examples. Like you and I communicated daily, if not every other day, and it was giving examples like change this to this, do this, try this color, right? And those were the things because I just couldn't wrap my head around some of the small changes I needed to make. So I feel like the communication really helped. It was scary and then it turned exciting. And it was
Mm,
like, okay, once you start to make those changes and step out of your bubble or out of your comfort zone, it gets easier. And trusting the process and trusting you and trusting what you're telling me. And once you got to jump in, like you just have to commit. You're the specialist, right? You're the pro.
hmm
And I, yeah, I think I just couldn't believe how quickly things started to change in the
mm,
channel.
yeah.
And then it was every week. It was like, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this. The analyzation every week was huge help. Cause that's where you do those little change this. It was like little tweaks here and there. And I would take notes and try and keep them up when I was recording my videos to remember, because it was so many little things put together that made such a large impact on my
hmm
videos and on my channel. Yeah, oh man, I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm grateful
Just
to
so
work with
grateful.
you.
Yeah, it changed the trajectory of my channel, and in a positive way. And I know it's just going to continue to grow, and the dreams get bigger and the goals get bigger. The other thing I was going to say about the boot camp was I really enjoy the ROI calls.
Mm,
And that's kind of where we can, put our questions in. And prior to the one-on-one coaching, I know I was like way more involved, but once we got into one-on-one coaching, I felt like I was getting all my questions answered there.
yeah.
But those ROI calls, those are great because everyone in the group is submitting questions. And even though they're from different niches and their questions are all different, you were able to grab so much information to apply into your channel. And that actually was one of the big, I want to say, big puzzle pieces that helped make changes as well in the boot camp for my channel.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see you back on the calls now that you're done with coaching.
I know.
Don't be a stranger. Come back. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the one-on-one clients still, they stay in the group because there's like an alumni program, because those calls, like you said, it's like things are constantly evolving and changing with YouTube. Like right now, like they're just like monetizing shorts. I mean, and you know how I feel about shorts, but like as things happen, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be testing things. I'm going to be playing around with things. Like, and I always bring that to the calls. And I feel like,
Absolutely.
for, it's like, that's that, because like I said before, like YouTube, there's definitely best practices, but there's also, there's a couple different things. It's like, it's constantly evolving and changing, which is great. Can provide those updates in the boot camp, but at the same time, each person also has their own individualized niche and strategy. And that's why being able to connect with people during the calls and have them directly ask me questions and me taking a look at their channels, I find is effective too, because then they get customized like feedback, not just like, okay, add color to your thumbnail. It's like, well, in this case, actually, it's totally different, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So much valuable information is shared in those calls. So much.
Yeah.
And applicable to everyone's channels, no matter what your niche is.
So what would you say helped you the most inside of the boot camp or the coaching?
This is so hard. I think in the boot camp, the modules were very well laid out, and then the ROI calls, those really helped answer the question. Like, you know what I mean? It was like different. It was like getting, I don't know. They work very well together. And a lot of questions that people have, we all have similar ones. And that's what I was learning. And then I think once I went into that one-on-one coaching, it was us working on every single video, right? It was working on the thumbnail for videos, working on the titles, working on the scheduling and the details. Like, we broke down everything in my channel and gave me a path and notes on what to do and where I was going. And I think that's hard, is laying out that path and that goal and what are you working towards. So I think, the first part was getting that framework. And then that second part was the step by step and working together on each individual video.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. With the coaching, it's like every single aspect is like going through with a fine-tooth comb. Everything. Yeah. I'm like, don't get overwhelmed. You're going to get a ton of feedback here, Yeah. And I think people at the beginning, like you said, it's a little scary. You kind of have to process everything. And then you're like, okay, let's just do it one thing at a time. And then you see what happens.
And pages of notes. Like, even with the hour and a half call, it's pages of notes. And the brainstorming for ideas. Yeah, there's so much to even like just say what was the biggest. I don't know, because it was so many changes that I think had an overall impact, basically.
Yeah. And then for people listening, watching, they're not familiar, in the boot camp, there's the ROI call with like return on investment. That's why I say ROI. It's kind of like, okay, your return on your time investment, money investment, let's get down to it during these calls. They're basically the group calls. And then when you're in the boot camp, you have 12 of those calls. So you get quite a bit that you have access to get that interaction and get that feedback.
And even past calls. I know when I was in the boot camp, I actually went 2 years back on your ROI calls and was just listening to past ones as well, because there was just a lot of information in them. Once you start on those calls, you get addicted.
Yeah, you binge them. I always tell people, like, this is your new podcast. Just like listen to this while you're doing dishes, you're driving, because you're just going to get so much. Because there's been so many women that have gone through this program, and, they'll pop in periodically. It's never the same group of people in every call. It's always different. It's like some of the same people, but then you get new people, and then the people that have been around for a long time, like they maybe will pop in like once a month, or even once every other month. It's just always a different group. So when you're doing the coaching or even the boot camp and your channels, you start to see some changes, like you said, the AdSense changes, or even like the retention changes or the views changes. What did that look like? And what, if anything, changed for you in your mind?
So I would say the retention changes, again, that was like that was like the first big change that I saw. I was seeing average retention rate probably around, it's so hard to remember. I think it was around 40 to 45%. And what I started to see during the boot camp was consistently hitting over 50. I do see my channel I've seen some high retentions actually recently, but I think that's just the continual growth from us working together. But I rarely have videos under 50% now. And that was common before, where I would see that 40 to 45%, and it just wasn't enough for the videos to keep getting pushed in YouTube for for views.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the parameters I saw.
I just want to even like commend you, because to be able to consistently have like 50 to 60 retention, I remember seeing during the coaching, at least, your videos would get sometimes a 55% retention, or even up to 60% retention. But being able to do that for like 30-minute videos, 45-minute videos, like that's insane. So it's like, it wasn't just like, you know, the retention on like a 5-minute video or 10-minute video. Your videos were long.
It was surprising. I think we were both sitting there like, oh my gosh, okay, let's try 10 more minutes in length.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my higher retention videos now, where I get like the 65, sometimes up to 70%, I'm doing like 10 to 15-minute how-to type videos or tips and tricks or whatever. And those videos, I edit them a little bit different. So typically, so for my news videos, I'm doing like a talking head. I literally am doing a talking head for 45 minutes to an hour. But with those tips and tricks videos, I'm doing more cuts, more graphics in it, sound effects, things like that. And those ones, I can see retention upwards of 70% on those ones.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which is like so crazy.
Yeah, it's really, really good. The other question was like, what changed for you in your mind when you started to see some of these positive changes?
Possibility. I think that's what changed. It was like possibility, and it fuels you to start to make more changes. Like the hardest part is always just making that initial change, or learning the tools to make those different changes. And then I think once you start to see those, you start to practice those tools more often. Like YouTube is it's work, right? So it's hard when you're doing work and you're not seeing the results. But when you start to see results, it really fires you up to keep making those changes, to continually grow. And I think that's another part of YouTube, is continually growing, right?
Yeah.
Not just being happy, okay, I'm here, this is good enough. It's like, okay, what can I improve next? Okay, what can I change next, right? It's that 1% every time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you were talking about that curve going up. That's where you start to see that curve, because I think you start to see some results from changes you're making. And then when it starts to snowball, you commit to making those changes, because you know the more changes, the more small improvements you make, the faster that trajectory goes.
Definitely. Yeah. And I love what you said about it just shows you possibility, and it gets you more motivated. Like that's usually what happens, is when you start seeing positive progress, that you get more motivated to do more, and then do more, and then do more. So what would you say is the biggest piece of advice for someone that wants to succeed on YouTube?
I wish I would have joined the boot camp earlier, instead of spinning my wheels for as long as I did. So I think my advice to anyone on YouTube that's trying to succeed is, trying to get the tips and tricks everywhere they can, commit to something. And I think your boot camp is a great tool, and do that, because the tools are there. Do you know? Everything is there. The process is there. It's been applied to many people. I wish I would have done it sooner. Yeah. That would be, and that's almost a regret, but I wish I would have done it sooner, because it just started the movement.
What would you tell someone who is on the fence or thinking of investing in the boot camp or one-on-one YouTube coaching?
I think do it. Do it. Like if you're serious about your channel and you want to, I don't want to say be successful, because everyone's level of success is differently, but if you love doing YouTube, and even if you're not sure what to do with YouTube, I think there's good direction in the boot camp as well. Because I think some people, I noticed, dabble. Like I was really fortunate. I had my niche. I knew what I was doing. But a lot of people are kind of dabbling in everything and not really in one thing. And that was one thing the boot camp really helped, was like narrow your niche, get your goals set. And I think, it's one of the best. It is probably the best step that I made in my YouTube journey.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I mean, I so enjoy getting to know you through the coaching and the boot camp and seeing, what I think was really amazing is as a relatively small channel is seeing some amazing numbers and monetization.
Yeah,
And it's like you're a testament to the fact that you could be very niche, and not everybody has to be niche, right? I work with some people that have more of a lifestyle and they're talking about all kinds of things and that really works for them, right? And the
yeah,
thought of being in such a specific niche would drive them crazy. They'd burn out and they wouldn't continue on. That's why I go back to, like, every single person's different. Every single approach is a little bit different. But you're of the example of somebody that's like super hyper niche,
yeah.
Poshmark reselling, and has this crazy loyal engaged audience, and leveraging that to fulfill your life dreams, which we were talking about offline, of like, living your life to the fullest, like, like you said, you have kids that are getting a little bit older, and you want to like travel and do a whole bunch of things, and how YouTube can effectively fit into that, and you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of subscribers for that, and which is so incredible. That's why I'm so passionate about YouTube, because it can truly change the lives of so many women, as it has
100%.
for you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like, if I was ever, like, what has YouTube done for me? It's changed the trajectory of my life, really. Like, before, I
Hmm.
thought I would just be doing, certain things, and this is just how it was going to
Pharmacy,
be.
yeah, yeah.
Pharmacy, and now, like, I will still continue to work the minimum amount of hours for my license and my malpractice and stuff, but it's like opened up this whole different dream in my life, and I love it. I'm excited. I'm fueled by it. And I get to do, I mean, I'm passionate about pharmacy, but this is, I'm finding, is to be a bigger passion to me. And
Hmm.
I get to do what I love and make money doing it. And I think when you're talking about, like, what would be something about YouTube that if someone was just starting out, it was being consistent. That was actually one of the things that your boot camp and the one-on-one coaching taught me, was like being consistent to your audience. And I think one of the other, like, this is like a little pro tip, answer every single question. Like, when we talk about loyal community, I feel like my community is my family. Like, I know them. I know what comments they're going to make because we talk in the comments a lot. I reply to every single comment individually. And yeah, I think that's also another really big thing in building community around your channel.
Yeah, you have a great community, and it is cool how, like, you have this career, being a pharmacist that you've worked at your whole life, and you enjoy that, but you're able to explore this whole other path, Poshmark reselling, right? Which is its own animal. And I know so many people, just like personally, they don't have YouTube channels, but they do the Poshmark thing and they love it. And it's so fun. And there's a thrill of getting these pieces and reselling them, and, like, getting those sales every day.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool way for you to explore another passion of yours, and effectively maybe have it be that thing that allows you to travel or do the passionate things in life you want to do, like explore life to the fullest. It's so cool to me.
It's cool
So
to me too.
yeah, yeah, I love it. So, Tabs, for anyone that's not familiar with you and your channel, any of you, resellers out there, or Poshmark resellers, or just want to know behind the scenes of what goes on with the resellers, definitely check out her channel. Such a great channel. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Tabs McCaffrey on YouTube. I'm on TikTok at Tabs McCaffrey, and Instagram at The Urban Goddess Shop. And there's a period between each word.
And
So
that's
those
you
are,
on Poshmark too, right? The Urban
oh
Goddess
yeah,
Shop.
yeah, yep, The Urban Goddess. Yeah.
Yep. So definitely check her out, show her some love, tell her you found her on this podcast. Thank you so much, Tabs. Awesome chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.